Sometimes your soul does not find answers in books, but in a glance that repeats itself, a number that appears the very moment you are doubting, or a song that plays in the middle of life, as if someone is responding to you. These signs are not tricks of the imagination. They are the subtlest truths, only sensed by an awakened soul. I have witnessed hundreds of dreams in which souls, just having stepped out of their physical bodies, were immediately guided by sequences of coincidences that seemed inexplicable. They asked me, how does the universe know exactly what I need at that moment? I simply answered, because it is not blind. It has been listening to you long before you knew how to say your own name. There is an intelligence orchestrating everything around you. It is not random when you think of someone and they appear. It is not random when a stranger says exactly what you are struggling with. Every movement around you is a whisper. The question is not whether these things happen, but whether you can still hear them or have been deafened by the noise of habit and logic. Modern people call it coincidence. They comfort themselves that it is just probability, randomness, cognitive bias. But when I look into the energy fields surrounding each person, I see that those moments shine. They are like knots in the timeline, where the soul touches the signal of the universe. And if alert enough to pause, they will know they are being shown the way. In the times I enter deep meditative states, I have seen strands of light weaving together like an invisible web of life covering the physical world. Each strand led to a person, a decisión, an experience. When two strands intersected, reality vibrated. We call it synchronicity. But in truth, it is an echo, a response from the level of intelligence that you are still connected to, even if your physical memory no longer holds it. Once, a mother who had lost her child came to me. She kept seeing the child's birth date number appearing everywhere, on license plates, receipts, hotel room numbers. She thought she was delusional from grief, but when I placed my hand on her forehead, I saw that the child was trying to send signals through many layers of consciousness to say to the mother, I am still here. Love does not connection is not broken. It is only the living who forget how to listen. The problem is that we have been taught to see the world as a lifeless machine. Anything that cannot be measured is dismissed. But if you have ever felt a strange wind while praying, ever heard a reply that came from no one's lips, ever seen an animal silently watching you for an inexplicable moment, then you have met it already. The sign, the message, the awakening, no religion owns this truth. It does not belong to doctrine. It is the inherent power within your soul. You can choose to ignore it. But when you do, you are refusing the very chance of guidance from your deeper being. I do not want you to merely believe me. I want you to remember, look into your own life. There were crossroads you took, not because of logic, but because of a nameless feeling that told you it was the right way. There were encounters that seemed random, but shifted your destiny entirely. There were signs that repeated so many times you could no longer pretend not to see them. That is not coincidence. That is the rising of soul memory. When you begin to pay attention, you reopen a forgotten channel of communication. And when you respond, the universe continues to send more. What you need is not new knowledge, but silence deep enough to recognize what is repeating. Nothing happens without meaning. No whisper is sent to the wrong address. If you are reading this and feel something within you stirred, then I want you to understand this clearly. You have received the call, and this is only the beginning. You did not lose your intuition. You were taught to stop believing in it. From a very young age, you lived in a body that could feel, a soul that could listen, a consciousness that could resonate with the frequency of all things. But little by little, you were pulled out of that state by the sweet words of those who seemed to love you. When you noticed a repeating pattern in life and asked your mother, you were told it was random. When you told your teacher that you sensed something was about to happen, you were dismissed with a smile and a lesson in logic. When you felt that something inside you knew before thought even formed, you were pulled into a math test. Bit by bit, you were trained not to trust the voice that could not be proven, to believe only in what could be measured, calculated, replicated, and from there, you left the realm of the soul without even realizing you had walked away. I have observed hundreds of souls after leaving the physical world. They were not confused by death. They were confused by suddenly remembering all the things they once felt while alive, which they had not believed, not heard, not followed. They did not suffer because of major mistakes, but because of all the times they ignored the small signals, the glances, the intuitions, the sudden detours, full of hints. They bypassed them all, just because a system taught them that only what can be seen is real, and what can be felt is mere imagination. They were not wrong. They were just programmed. Modern education is not a path of awakening, but a mold that shapes the mind. It does not teach you to listen. It teaches you to recall someone else's words. It does not guide you into inner understanding. It pushes you into becoming someone who gives correct answers. When I was alive, people often ask me why children have such vivid dreams, suche sharp senses, which they slowly lose as they grow up. I simply answered, because children have not yet been taught not to believe. They have not yet been covered with the dust of structure, evaluation, to fear, and reward. But once they step into society, they are graded for remembering, not recognized for feeling. And so the world gradually produces people who know many things but remember nothing about themselves. The great concealment is not the result of a government conspiracy or some shadowy force. It is subtler than that. It lies in every careless sentence, every dismissive glance, every time you chose to follow the crowd instead of your intuition. It lies in the way you were taught. That truth lies out there, not within you. And so you walk, search, compete, compare, strive, without ever stopping to ask yourself, is the thing I know but cannot articulate actually the truest of all? I do not say this to make you angry at society. I say it so that you can forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for once doubting the clear signals. Forgive yourself for staying silent when the soul knocked at your door. Forgive yourself for once choosing what was correct in books over what was right for you. And from there, begin the journey of remembering, not learning more, but peeling away, not adding knowledge, but quieting the noise. When you stop resisting intuition, it will return. When you begin to pay attention again, the signals will appear, not because they have just arrived, but because you have just opened your eyes. I once met a middle-aged man who always felt something was off in his life, but could not explain why. He had a stable job, a complete family, and the respect of his peers. But every morning he woke with a void. When I placed my hand on his forehead in deep meditation, an image appeared of a young boy sitting alone in class, drawing strange shapes that were erased by the teacher. From that moment, the child inside him went silent, and that man grew up to become someone accepted, but no longer alive. The system had succeeded, but the soul had never given up. If you feel that something in life is not quite right, even though everything seems fine, it may be because you still remember something that was hidden. If you have ever sensed something but did not dare believe it, it may be because you are at the threshold. No one can teach you how to remember, for it is a journey that cannot be handed over. But I can tell you this, when you doubt the truth within you, that is when the system has won. And when you begin to listen again, you are not just reclaiming your intuition, You are breaking a program that has lasted for centuries, and that is the beginning of true freedom. What you call coincidence, the ancients called a message. When you see a repeating number or meet a stranger who speaks exactly what you were thinking, you doubt the randomness. But if you had lived in ancient Egypt, you would have been taught that every event is the result of an intelligent cosmic structure. Nothing arrives suddenly. No movement exists outside of a cycle. In the deep states of sleep, when I connect with the layer of collective memory, I see hundreds of civilizations that once lived in this awareness. They did not question whether the universe sends signs. They only asked themselves if they had listened carefully enough. They lived among symbols, numerology, astronomy, and rituals not to control the world, but to cooperate with it. They did not separate human beings from the whole. They saw each personal decision as part of a greater harmony. They called it sacred order. Then, over the centuries, the material world began to elevate reason as an idol. Knowledge was severed from experience, and science was distorted into a tool for rejecting what cannot be measured. You were taught that if something could not be repeated in a laboratory, it was not real. The door of science, which was originally created to explore the unknown, suddenly became locked by those who only trust what they can manipulate. This is not the fault of science, but of minds afraid to lose control. And in that fear, they eliminated everything that made them no longer the center. Carl Jung, the originator of the concept of synchronicity, was not a monk or a mystic, but a professionally trained psychiatrist. But he could not ignore the hundreds of times his patients described deeply meaningful coincidental events, dreams that offered solutions no logic could give, ancient symbols that appeared in the minds of modern people who had never read about them. And then Jung himself experienced synchronicities so irrational that he was forced to admit reality was not simple. He called it the acausal principle, meaning events connected not by physical causes, but by meaning. In other words, your soul is communicating with life through subtle signals, not in linear logic, but through invisible layers of meaning. Einstein once said that intuition is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. But in this age, we have honored the servant and forgotten the gift. Science is not the enemy of spirituality. It was once the extended arm of sacred curiosity, but when it is dominated by rigidity and the fear of being wrong, it becomes a barrier that prevents you from returning to your deepest sensitivity. I do not reject reason. I only remind you that there are things which cannot be seen with the eyes but shape your entire path. Breath, emotion, intuition, dreams, and irrational urges, all are signals. And when science refuses to listen to those signals, it is only saying that it is not yet vast enough to understand not that those things do not exist. Those who carried ancient consciousness once knew that numbers are the language of the universe. They did not see numbers as mere tools for calculation, but as symbols carrying vibrational frequencies. When you see a sequence repeating itself, it is not just a coincidence. It is vibration revealing itself beyond appearances. What you call 1111 or 333 is not luck. They are the dots in the cosmic symphony marking that a new rhythm is beginning. The truth is, synchronicity is not something new. It is merely forgotten, and you do not need to prove it to anyone, because the truth does not need belief in order to exist. It continues to operate. It continues to whisper. It continues to guide. The only question is whether you still remember its language. If you find yourself beginning to recall sequences of coincidence you once ignored, that is not regret. It is evidence that the door was never truly closed. It has only been waiting for your return, not with a busy mind, but with a listening heart. And that is when science is no longer a barrier, but a bridge. When reason accepts that it is not the whole, it becomes sacred. And when you walk into life with both reason and intuition, you no longer merely live in the material world, you are entering the sacred depth of reality that ancient civilizations once lived fully, and in that place, synchronicity is no longer a question, but the answer. When you think of someone you have not seen in a long time and that person appears on the very same day, it is not a coincidence. When you open a random book and find a passage that seems written exactly for the silent question in your mind, it is not a trick of the brain. When you see repeating numbers again and again, hear the same phrase from 3 different people, encounter the same symbol in unrelated places, what is happening is not within the domain of chance. It is the structure of an intelligence operating with you. These signs are the conversation between the universe and your soul, encoded in the form of circumstance, symbol, and timing. They do not speak in human language, but through arrangement, the seemingly illogical yet deeply meaningful alignment of life's pieces is a wordless language that only the awakened can understand. I have been led into deep dream states where souls quietly reflect on their lives. They do not regret their failures. They regret the moments when the universe knocked, and they did not answer. The opportunities that appeared in strange forms, the intuitions that were dismissed, the turns they did not take because no one could confirm them. A sign is never a shout. It is a soft knock like dew falling. When you are still, you hear it. When you are too busy struggling with reason, it withdraws. These signals do not demand blind faith. They only ask that you stop pretending you cannot see. The issue is that you are used to living in a reality where everything must have a cause. Everything that happens must be explainable. And you forget that your soul does not operate on linear logic. It functions through intuition and resonance. Signs are the connection points between the vibrational layer within you and the movements outside. When you feel guided, it is not because someone somewhere is controlling you like a chess piece. It is because you and the universe are 2 faces of one energy stream. You are not being forced. You are being invited. And those invitations appear as synchronicities. A student once asked me, if these signs are real, why can't everyone see them? I answered that the universe does not lack signals. People lack silence. The signs have not disappeared. You have just been distracted for too long to still hear them. Just like radio waves always exist around you, but if you do not have the right receiver, you only perceive empty space, just like a bird sings across the sky and leaves behind its song. But if you are too focused on the ground, you will say the sky is silent. So the first step to seeing signs is to pause, to ask, to open your heart as if the answer is already present, and you simply need to choose to see it. No one else can confirm for you whether a sign is real or not. It is something beyond the evaluation standards of the crowd. Whether you feel it or not is the only measure, and if your heart stirs in an inexplicable way when a coincidence occurs, that is the echo. You do not need to fully understand to know that something sacred has just happened. A door does not require you to analyze before it opens. It only needs you to stand before it in enough stillness to touch your deeper being. I am not saying you must chase every coincidence as if each one carries a message, but I am saying that some patterns repeat not by chance, but because you have not answered. Some chains of events occur with a strange rhythm, as if to say, look more closely. And when you begin to ask, you also begin to remember, because those signs do not come from outside. They are activated from within. They are the echoes of your soul, reflected in the mirror of reality. If something has happened often enough for you to notice, do not try to explain it. Listen, because when you truly listen, what comes next is no longer a sign. It is a step And when you step into it with awareness, you are no longer a mere observer of life. You are someone invited into a greater dialogue, where reality is a letter, and you are the one receiving its reply. Consciousness does not simply observe reality, it rewrites it. Every thought you generate, even in silence, is an electric current being transmitted, and the universe responds as if it were a conversation taking place without words. You are not standing outside the world, looking in. You are speaking to it every second, every minute. When you believe you are abandoned, everything around you begins to reflect that exact separation. When you carry a deep question within, symbols begin to appear as if someone is whispering that the answer is near. This is not mystical belief. It is the energetic structure of consciousness in motion. I have entered deep meditative states where the human soul is no longer bound by ordinary thinking, and I saw that every thought leaves a trace. Like a stone dropping into a lake leaves ripples, thoughts generate vibrational frequencies. But what you need to understand more deeply is that this frequency does not merely spread outward, it touches the vibrational web of all things. And that very web sends a signal back. That is why synchronicities are not just signs that you are on the right path. They are responses to the frequency you are emitting. And if you send a clear signal, the echoes return faster, stronger, and more accurately. Reality is not fixed. It is constantly adjusted by your focus. You do not see what is real until you look at it with attention. This is something quantum physics has described clearly. In the double-slit experiment, light particles do not decide whether they are particles or waves until the observer steps in. That means your act of observing changes the nature of what is being observed. And if even a tiny particle like a photon responds to consciousness, then your entire timeline is being rewritten every day by what you choose to focus on. But the important point is not about physics. It lies in the deeper question: what are you sending out every day? What frequency are you transmitting? Because what you receive is not random. It is the precise reflection of what you are holding inside, whether you are aware of it or not. When you live in doubt and anxiety, reality responds with chaos. When you enter a state of trust and stillness, synchronicities begin to appear like gentle knocks guiding you forward. You do not need to control everything. You only need to take responsibility for the frequency you emit. I once told someone who was struggling with a sense of being lost that he did not need a map. He needed to change the wavelength he was broadcasting. When he stopped asking why things were not coming and started living as if they were approaching, synchronicities appeared constantly. A person he never dared dream of contacted him. An opportunity he had missed returned, not because the universe had changed, but because he had adjusted his vibration so reality could resume communication. You cannot hear a station if you keep the dial tuned to the wrong frequency. And you cannot see signs if your mind is clouded by the noise of doubt, overanalysis, and the fear of being wrong. Communication with the universe does not happen through language. It happens through resonance. Each time you think with faith, you send a clear signal. Each time you act as if you are being guided, you amplify that signal. And each time you listen, even without proof, you enter into a dialogue deeper than words. You do not need to speak aloud for the universe to hear you. You only need to feel with clarity. What you send out is not in sound, it is in vibration. And what you receive in return is not in words, it is in coincidental signs, perfect moments, inexplicable convergences. When you understand this, you are no longer a bystander. You are the transmitter, and every thought, every belief, every emotion you hold inside is a signal being sent without pause. Thought is not a tool to control the world. Thought is how you converse with the deeper origin of reality. And when you shift from observation to communication, from doubt to participation, from verifying to connecting, life is no longer a chain of random events. It becomes a stream of messages waiting for you to understand and respond, not someday, right now. In every moment you pause and remember that you have never been just an observer. You are the wave that has always shaped the rhythm. The subconscious never sleeps. Even when you stop thinking, a deeper part of you continues to record, connect, and shape the reality you are living. It does not ask whether you believe or not. It simply does its work, quietly but powerfully. Every emotion you have ever held onto, every unspoken thought, every belief you do not realize you carry becomes the raw material the subconscious uses to construct the path you call your life. And what few people recognize is that from that deep layer, synchronicities begin to form. You assume that you only encounter familiar things because your brain filters information. That is partly true, but it is not enough to explain why certain chains of coincidence cannot be calculated by probability. The truth is, the subconscious does not merely respond to information. It emits frequency. It is a transmitter constantly sending signals into the energetic field around you. And that field is not silent. It replies. Those replies are synchronicities, not miracles from somewhere outside, but perfect reflections of the frequency you are living within. The clearer your inner intentions, the more your subconscious acts like a finely tuned antenna receiving matching situations. When you want something but carry doubt, your signal is weak. When you hold a bright and steady intention, the frequency becomes clear, and reality begins to restructure to meet it, not through magic, but through subtle alignments, chance encounters, short conversations that seem meaningless. Every detail is a response. If you have ever felt that something was guiding you without a specific reason, then you have already touched the operational layer of the subconscious. It knows you will doubt, so it does not convince you with logic. It leads you through experience. That is how it works. It does not speak. It arranges. It does not force. It invites, and that invitation is encoded in synchronicities. Another important thing to understand is that the frequency you emit does not only come from the words you speak. It comes from unprocessed emotions, from wounds you do not dare face, from desires suppressed beneath layers of reason. The subconscious weaves all of it into the frequency, and when that frequency is off, reality sends back warnings. Negative repetitions do not come to punish. They come to make you look at the source. You cannot pretend to love life while harboring disappointment and not see it mirrored in your circumstances. I have seen people who lived in subtle defense against the world constantly encounter situations where they felt misunderstood, not because the world misunderstood them, but because the frequency they emitted always said, "I'm not safe." And reality replied with that exact storyline. But when they began to change the story when the vibration shifted from doubt to trust, everything around them shifted too. They did not need to try to create synchronicities. They just needed to return to their true frequency. The rest appeared on its own. You cannot control synchronicities with willpower, but you can invite them with alignment. The subconscious will handle the rest. It is the bridge between you and a greater intelligence. It knows how to open the right doors at the right time, create the right sequences, bring you to the right people. But it needs one thing: clarity. When you are conflicted inside, the signal is distorted. When you are honest and consistent with what you want, you become a clean current flowing into the universal system. And that system will respond without error. The world does not betray you. It only reflects you. The subconscious does not work against you. It simply carries out the program you did not know you were running. And frequency does not lie. If synchronicities are not appearing, perhaps you have not truly opened your heart. If they are appearing and you still ignore them, the subconscious will turn off the signal and wait until you are ready to listen again. But when you begin to notice, hold a clear vibration and live as if reality is communicating, you will see that synchronicities are not a reward. They are the default language of an awakening soul, and you have always had it within you. You just forgot how to read it. But the subconscious has never forgotten how to write. There are three forms the universe commonly uses to send signals to you. They are not as complicated as you think. They are simple, direct, and repeat often enough that you cannot help but notice, but most people miss them because they expect something grand instead of a subtle sign. The universe does not shout in your ear. It whispers, and if you are not quiet enough, you will mistake the sacred for coincidence. The first signal is numbers, not just any numbers, but repeating sequences like 1,000, 111, 220, 330. Some people see 11, 11 on the clock every day. Some always receive receipts ending with the same digits. Some constantly find themselves in rooms with the same number sequence. What you need to understand is that numbers are not just for counting. In ancient traditions, numerology was never separated from spirituality. Each number carries a specific vibrational frequency. When you see these numbers repeating, what is happening is a resonance between your inner state and the rhythm of reality. It is not that you found the number, it found you at the exact moment you needed confirmation or warning, and the moment you glance at the clock and see that familiar sequence, that is a touch, a tap on the most sensitive point of the energy stream moving within you. The second type is symbols. It might be a bird flying past at the exact moment you are praying, a song playing from someone's car while you are in doubt, a symbol you never paid attention to suddenly repeating over several days. The important thing is not what you see, but how you feel when you see it. If something in your heart stirs gently or a state of awareness suddenly arises, that is a sign. Do not let the rational mind make you doubt. Symbols do not come from logic. They come from resonance. When something appears repeatedly to you but not to others, it does not mean you are imagining things. It means you are being touched in a way that matches your personal coding system. The universe does not use a single language for everyone. It uses the deep memory within you as its translation dictionary. The third type of signal is perfectly timed coincidences. A friend from the past messages you just as you are thinking about them. An opportunity appears just as you intend to change direction. A door opens right after you thought it was shut. This is the type of sign that startles many people the most, because they cannot be explained by logic. They come fast, unexpectedly, and often shift the course of a situation. Many people call them luck, but when you start to record these coincidences, you will notice something. They are not rare occurrences. They are responses activated by an internal state that is clear and aligned enough. The more you live in awareness and consistency, the more you encounter sequences of events that feel like guidance. The question is not how to make these signs appear. They are always there. The question is whether you still have the ability to read your own rhythm. The universe does not speak the same language to everyone. Each person has their own sensory code. For one, a sign comes through light. For another, through sound. For you, it might arrive through sensation, images, or coincidences so striking they make you pause for a second and wonder, was that really random? This also explains why you cannot use someone else's experience to confirm your own sign. One person sees a number and feels uplifted. Another sees a repeating bird and senses a warning. Someone meets a stranger and knows they have just been handed a key. No one else can tell you what is real. But because of that, every signal you receive becomes more trustworthy if it touches you directly. That feeling cannot be faked. It is the deepest reflex of the soul when it recognizes that it has just been called by name. Do not rush to explain. Let everything live the way it arrives. Record what repeats. Observe without judgment. And if an unusual feeling rises in your heart when a number sequence, a symbol, or a synchronistic event occurs, it is not just a fleeting emotion. It is an invitation without words, a reminder that you are being guided, and if you know how to read, reality will keep writing, not with words, but with arrangements that are uncannily precise. A sign has no meaning if you do not pause to understand it. The universe does not send signals to decorate your life with strangeness. It sends them to communicate. Every symbol, every number sequence, every coincidence carries a message, but that message does not reveal itself on its own. It requires you to actively decode it, not with theory, but with the honesty of your feeling. You cannot read signs with eyes looking for validation. You must see with a heart that is seeking guidance. The first thing you need to do is pause when a sign appears. Do not just smile and move on. Ask yourself in silence, what was I thinking? Just before this, what emotion was I feeling? What question remains unanswered? What state am I stuck in? A sign never appears without reason. It always comes in relation to some inner movement. If you do not pause to trace it, you will miss its layer of meaning. And if you miss it too many times, your subconscious will eventually stop activating that frequency. Next, write it down. Do not believe you will remember everything important. The subconscious needs a place to reflect, and writing is one of the strongest mirrors. Every time you record a synchronicity, you are sending a signal that you respect this dialogue. And when you write it down, you will start to notice patterns, a symbol repeating in cycles, a number always tied to a certain feeling, a time of day always linked with a certain kind of decision. What once seemed small will connect into a subtle map that only you can decode. Decoding does not require mystical knowledge. It requires honest listening. When you see 1111 appear repeatedly, do not rush to find answers online. Turn inward. What is repeating inside you? What are you hesitating on? Is there something you are afraid to say out loud that your soul is already naming? A coincidence does not answer in literal terms. It touches the deepest emotional layer and asks you to feel, and when you truly feel, you will understand. No translation needed. No explanation, just understanding through state. A common mistake is waiting for more signs, to be sure. But signs are not confirmations from the outside for you to finally dare to act. They are invitations. If you only observe without stepping forward, the energy stream is cut off. The universe needs to see a response to continue the conversation. If you receive a sign and feel a subtle inner nudge, that is the invitation to act. It does not need to be a big action, just one small step in the direction the sign opened. When you act on a sign, you amplify the frequency, you show you are listening. And when you listen, synchronicities begin to increase. Remember that a sign never speaks in the language of fear. If what you see causes panic, it may be the echo of an old belief, not guidance from a deeper level. A true sign comes with a feeling of clarity, even if you do not yet understand. You feel your heart open, even without certainty. Something feels lighter. That is the sign being decoded at the right layer. And when you are in that state, you do not need to ask anyone if they believe. You just keep walking. Recording synchronicities is a practice of presence. The more you pay attention, the more sensitive you become. The more sensitive you are, the more you see the deeper layers of meaning. Reality is not a flat wall. It is a mirror, and what you see depends on the inner light you carry. When you live in doubt, you only see coincidence. When you live in awareness, you see the message. The universe has not changed. How you read it is what determines everything. If there is a place within you that once felt shut down by logic, now is the time to awaken it with one simple action. Acknowledge and respond. Write down what repeats. Pause when your heart stirs, and trust that you are not alone. Every sign is a sentence. Every repetition is a piece of dialogue. And if you truly listen, you will know that the signs were never vague. They have only been waiting for you to stop, recognize, and say one very small sentence. I received it. Synchronicities do not come for you to sit and admire, then retell as a strange anecdote. They come to be lived with, to be carried forward, to be turned into action. The universe is not sending a letter. It is knocking on your door. And each time you only look without stepping forward, that slightly open door begins to close, not because you are being punished, but because you did not respond. In this world, the response is the only confirmation of awakening. You cannot wake up if you continue to live as if in a dream. Some people say they see repeated signs but do not know what to do with them. I say the problem is not that they do not know. It is that they do not want to act. They hope the signal will be a guarantee, a detailed map, a confirmation, so they do not have to risk. But the universe does not work that way. It does not hand you a blueprint. It offers you a frequency. It does not bring you to the destination. It only brings you to the threshold. Whether you step through or not is a choice no one else can make. Calling a signal is not waiting for a sacred symbol. It is living in a state of readiness. You emit something, and you call back what matches it. If you emit doubt, you call back silence. If you emit trusting presence, you call back connections that defy logic. This is not the law of attraction in the simple sense. It is the way all levels of your vibration align with the information field surrounding all of reality. You are living inside an immediate response system, and the important point is, you are the one programming it. Calling does not happen through your mouth. It happens through clarity of intention. When you say something in your heart with enough clarity, reality goes quiet to listen. But if you speak while still unsure, fearful, calculating, the signal gets distorted. And the universe does not distinguish what you are thinking. It only reacts to the vibration you are truly emitting. So when you want something but your heart is full of anxiety, you are not calling what you want. You are calling what you fear. To call a signal, you must enter a state of alignment, not emotional intensity, but inner stillness deep enough to strip away all pretending. In that state, you do not need to shout. Just whisper, please show me a sign. Please let me know I am on the right path. And then release it. No demand, no force. That release is the most important part of calling a signal, because when you call, while still clinging to the outcome, you are sending out the frequency of lack. But when you call and are willing to wait, you are living as if the universe has already received. I once guided someone who had lost faith in life to stop trying to understand why everything went wrong and instead sit in silence and send out an invitation, not to anyone, but to the current flowing around him. The next day, he said a stranger called him for no clear reason, just to check in and share a story almost identical to what he was going through. That was not coincidence. That was a response. and it only appeared when he began to live as if he was ready to receive a signal. Action is the extension of the call. If you see a sign but do not dare follow it, you have rejected the very dialogue you began. And when you reject it too many times, your subconscious will learn to stop sending, not because you are wrong, but because you are not truly ready. Calling a signal is a commitment that when the signal arrives, you will listen, that when a path opens, you will step into it. No waiting for a second sign, no seeking confirmation from anyone else. Every time you act in alignment with the guidance, you are saying, I am awake. The universe does not care how clever you are. It only cares whether you are honest with the frequency you are living in. If you want to call something in, live as if it is approaching. If you need a sign, act as if you deserve to receive it. And if the sign appears, do not just record it, go with it. Shift from the observer to the one who walks. Turn what is hinted into what is lived. And when you live in that alignment, you no longer search for synchronicities. They become the natural rhythm of your life. And that is when you no longer call, you are already connected. Not just once, but always. You do not need more proof. You need to believe in what you have known for a very long time, but for many reasons have never dared to live by. I am not here to convince you that synchronicities are real, because you have already felt them. In the glance of a stranger, in the moment a number appeared, just as you prayed in silence. In the call that came as an echo to a question you never dared to speak aloud. You have already seen them, but what distanced you from those signals was not a lack of understanding, it was that you did not believe enough to act. Awakening is not the state of realizing that the universe is intelligent. That is only the first step. True awakening is when you live as if you are being guided, even when no one confirms it for you. When you stop seeking permission, when you stop waiting for certainty, when you no longer ask others whether they see the signs you are seeing, but you choose to believe, to step forward, to respond with even the smallest action. That is the meeting point between reason and wisdom, where you no longer need a reason to move in the direction that feels right. I have seen souls carrying regrets, not because they were wrong, but because they knew and did not dare to trust what they knew. They received the signal, but waited again. They waited for something clearer, more understandable, more reasonable. But the universe does not keep repeating the same message if you do not listen. And the silence you call emptiness is sometimes just the pause between two opportunities. If you do not cross the first threshold, the next door will not open. Not because you are unworthy, but because you have not shown that you are ready. I want to tell you this as someone who has walked through many layers of the soul. You do not need to understand everything to move forward. Understanding comes from experience, not preparation, and often understanding will only arrive after you have already acted. No one awakens by thinking long enough. They awaken by stopping the escape. And when you no longer reject the subtle vibrations, no longer pretend that you do not see, do not hear, do not feel, synchronicities are no longer external signs. They become a living language within you. Every breath is a line of communication. Every choice is a reply. You can continue to live as if everything is random, as if you are just a small piece in a great game, as if you are being pushed by forces beyond your control. But if you do, you are missing the deepest truth, that you are not just living in the universe, you are living with the universe. You are a branch of consciousness that is connected, guided, and empowered, not to control, but to co-create. Every moment you believe in the sign, you receive and live by it. You are weaving the soul's map with your own hands. There are things you know are true that you cannot explain, There are times you are led toward a direction no one understands. And in those very moments, you are being invited not to justify, but to choose. Awakening is when you no longer wait to feel safe before acting, when you no longer need more evidence to believe, when you walk forward even while questions remain, because the answers only come as you keep going. And if you ask me whether the signs disappear when you stop paying attention, I would say they never left. You just got lost in the noise of what others said was reasonable. But your soul does not need a reason to remember. It only needs you to be quiet long enough to realize that everything you once thought was coincidence has been arranged to guide you back to yourself. Stop counting signs as if they are bonus points. Live as if you are being guided every day. Walk as if the path is forming beneath your feet, not waiting at the end of a long journey. And if your heart has ever, even once, felt seen by a greater intelligence, then that moment was not an illusion. It was the first invitation, and now you are quiet enough to hear it again. There is nothing left to verify. There is only one question. Do you dare to live as if every sign you have ever seen was real? If the answer is yes, then synchronicities will no longer be surprising moments. They will become the familiar rhythm, because you have stopped waiting for a miracle and started living as if you are the most beautiful response the universe has ever sent.